Kalte oder soda uniprte. Hello and welcome to part 19 of the Na'vi grammar overview. Today we will talk about questions. Namely, we will talk about a few different kinds of questions. First, we will look at so-called polar questions. These are just questions that you can answer with a yes or a no. For example, do you like fish? In Na'vi, we can build them with srak or srake, or with a fuke, which is not that often used but also a nice little idiom to build them. After that, we will look into open questions. These are questions that require a bit more to answer. In English, we use WH words for that very often. For example, who, where, what, which, and so on. We will learn how to build them with the affix P. And afterwards, we will also look at some important question words, so stuff like who, where, why, all these typical question words in English. Next, we will look into choice questions. These are exactly what it sounds like, namely a question that asks you to pick one of two or more choices, like do you prefer fish or meat? Then we will look at tag questions. These are these questions that kinda ask for validation, like you are Neytiri, right? And lastly, we will look at so-called conjectural questions. That is probably a very scary looking word. It's not that difficult. Conjectural questions are just questions where you are sure that the other person, the one you are asking, also doesn't know the answer of. It's not that it's a specifically important type of question. I just include it here because we know how to build them in Na'vi and I wanted to have it there for completion's sake. But let's get into it. First, let's look at polar questions. Like I said, these are questions that you can answer with a yes or a no. So, questions like these. Do you like fruit? Are you well? Is it raining? You can build them in Na'vi with two different methods. First one, which is the one that most people use, is with srak or srake. Srak comes at the end of a sentence, srake at the beginning. Here are some examples. Ngaru sunu mauti. You like fruit. That's a normal statement. If I now want to turn this one into a question, I get srake ngaru sunu mauti. Do you like fruit? Literally, you like fruit? Yes, no. Because srak or srake actually comes from sran, yes, plus kehe, no. Or we can also change it into ngaru sunu mauti srak. Do you like fruit? You like fruit, yes or no? So this is the easiest way with which you can literally turn any sentence into a question. It gets interesting when we look at questions like this. Ngakelu tekre srak, aren't you tekre? You are not tekre, yes or no? In English, if someone asks me, aren't you tekre? I would say, yes, I am tekre. But in Na'vi, I actually have to answer kehe, or lu tekre. No, I'm tekre. We have to look at the details here. The statement here is nga ke lu tekre. You are not tekre. The statement is wrong, because I am indeed tekre. And because the statement that is questioned here is wrong, I have to answer with kehe. If I was someone else, then I could say srane, or ke lu tekre. I am indeed not tekre. And like I said, there is also a second way, an idiom with a fuke, whether or not. So a is a verb meaning to choose, but it's also a conjunction, whether, or something else. And we can use this like in the example to build polar questions. A ngarosunu mauti fuke. Do you like fruit or not? Let's next look at the open questions with pe. Pe is both a prefix and a suffix, and is productive for all nouns, so you can use it with every noun that we have to build a question word. This works like this. Ioang, our example word, means animal. If I now put the pe in front of it, pe ioang, I get which animal. And like I said, you could also put at the end, so ioang pe, which animal, and they mean exactly the same. If I now want to do this with two animals, so me ioang, then I get pe me ioang, or me ioang pe, which two animals. E ioang, three animals, would become pe ioang, or e ioang pe, which three animals. And Aioang, 4 or more animals, would become Paioang or Aioang pe, which animals? Here you see that the pe plus the I, if both are in front of the noun, become pai. If before the noun it causes the ignition, you probably already saw that in the example with the 3 animals, because it doesn't become pe ioang but pe ioang, so the pe, 3, becomes pe. And that also happens if you put in front of a noun that starts with a letter that's influenced by the ignition. For example, Taronyu, a hunter, becomes pe saronyu, witch hunter, or Taronyu pe, again, witch hunter. Here, of course, no change happens because the pe is behind the noun. This works a bit like the adpositions we talked about, where also the uniting adpositions, if they go in front, they cause ignition, but if they go after, they don't cause ignition. Another example, Puk is a book. Pe fuk or Pukpe would be which book. Let's look how they're used in a sentence. And this is actually pretty straightforward. They are used exactly like nouns, so you treat them like nouns. Let's look at some examples. Pe ioangit or ioangpeti taron fetr ngal. Which animal do you hunt today? Here you see that because we treat it like a normal noun, we need to give it a T ending here, because the animal or which animal is the thing that's being hunted, so it needs the T ending here. Pot e pol paide ut or pot e pol aide upeti. What or literally which words did she say? Hu pe saronyu or taronyu pe nga ut asuli. With which hunter did you meet? So we can use them like a normal noun with adpositions. Pehem or kempe singa, what are you doing? So here you see that we can also use it on the noun of a si verb. So kem si, to do an action, becomes pehem si or kempe si, to do which action. So in general, you just use them like you would usually use a noun. Don't forget about case endings. They are very important also with question words. Next, let's look at some important question words. These are just words that are very often used and that we probably think about first when we think about asking a question. These question words in Na'vi are pretty straightforward because they are just built with nouns plus the pe. Let's look at some examples. Grr means time. And if I now want to ask when, then I would say grpe or pehr, which time or what time. Pehr ngaza'u drai, when will you come tomorrow? Or veza'u zauke grpe, when will the sun come up? Next we have fjape or pefja. These come from fja'o, way or manner. You see that they have been shortened over time, which is just so they can be said easier. In nga fjape nifgr. Literally that means something like, how are you busy currently? And that's a way to ask what's been keeping you busy lately. Ngaru fgosiao pefja. How does one call to you? What's your name? Next we have dute, person, which becomes dupe or pesu, who. So here we see again a shortening. Pesuhu nga ut a si fetr. With whom do you meet today? Ngengalu pesu. Who are you? Here we see something interesting. We use the formal pronoun ngenga instead of nga. This is just a way to be polite when asking someone, when meeting them first. We actually have a lot of other different words to ask for who. This is because, additionally to the word tute, person, which is genderless, we also have the female version, woman, tute, and the male version, tutan, which is a man. And we of course also have forms for the dual, trial, or plural, so 2 men, 2 women, 3 men, 3 women, and 4 or more men or women. These all have different shortened forms, and because of this we get a lot of new words, namely these ones. This might look scary, but just add it to your notes, and honestly you don't really need that much. I just wanted to add it here that if you see these words, that you know where they're coming from. but most of the time you will only need the first row, which is derived from tute, person, because Na'vi doesn't really care that much about gender. But for example, if you specifically wanted to ask about 3 women, then you would take the word from the tute, woman, part, with the pe, the trial, and then you could ask for pepste or estepe, so which 3 women. Or if you wanted to ask for about 1 man, then you would take the singular tutan form, so you would ask for pestan or tutampe, which man. Next we have lumpe or pelun, which comes from lun, the reason, and means why, so literally which reason or what reason. Nga pelun weperan, why are you hiding? Lumpe nga tsakemsuli, why did you do that? Next we have upe or peu, which means what, it comes from u, a thing. Nga tiepe neo peu taoe, what does it you want from me? Peut ca ngal, what do you see? Next we have another word for what, this time from kem, action, so kempe or pehem, which means again what, but differently from the first one, from the upe or peu, it means what action. Matsute, pehem singa, what are you doing today? I think Neytiri said something like this in the first movie. Tsunfgo pehem sivi, what can one do? And for that we also have the short form just tsun pehem. What can one do? For kem, action, we actually also have some shortened versions for the dual and trial. So pehem and kempe you already know, what action, that's the singular. For the dual we don't say pe mehem, we say pemhem, or mehempe of course, what 2 actions. And for a trial we say pephem or ehempe, what 3 actions. Paihem or haihempe, what actions again is regular. Next we have where, which, like you probably can already guess, comes from tseng, a place. So it becomes tsengpe or peseng. Dogpol pesengti, where is he? So here you see we still need the case ending. Nga zolau ftu peseng, where are you from? Or from where did you come, literally. Next, let's look at fneel or fne, which is a type of. This one is a bit weird because we have both a noun, fnel, which really is a type, or we have fne, which is a prefix, type of. So for example, if I want to say a type of animal, I can either use the prefix and say fne yoang for a type of animal, or I can use the noun together with the genitives. So I say fnel ioange, type of animal. And because of this we also have different options together with the question affix. So we can either use pefnel or fnepe, which are the nouns, or we can use the prefix pefne, and they all mean what type. Let's look at an example. Sunu ngaro pefne yoang frato, which type of animal is your favorite? And now we can also rewrite that to Sunu ngaro pefnel ioange frato. Or we can also use, instead of pefnel, fnepe. Sunu ngaro fnepe ioange frato. Or of course we can put the question particle at the end and the fne prefix at the front, and then we get Sunu ngaro fne ioangpe frato. So all different forms to say the same thing. And last, let's look at holp I and him an. First let's look at holp I, number, which can become holp I or holp aipe, how many. Ngari soladeo holp aya zesit, how old are you? Literally, regarding you, how many years did proceed. Here you see something special. Holp I and also holp aipe can actually be used like adjectives. So we don't say holp I zesit, we say holp aya zesit. Or we could also say zesit a holp I. And of course we could also say holp aipea zesit or zesit a holp aipe. So other than the other question words, we can actually use this one like an adjective to say how many of something. Holp aya tanhit tsun cva, how many stars can you see? Next we have him an, amount, which becomes pimt an or himt ampe, how much. So the same thing like polp ein holp aipe, but for uncountable things. So we could ask pimt ana pai, how much water. We can also say, by the way, pimt ana tesom, which literally means how much hotness, and is a way to ask how hot. It is the same as somweope, so these two can be used interchangeably. So somweope, by the way, means what temperature. You see somweo, temperature, with pe again, so what temperature. And interesting, we can also use this one more in an adverb-like manner. Phenikroid lei pimt an. How valuable is this hair ornament? So lei is to be of value. So to be of value, how much? This hair ornament, literally. Now we have survived the biggest chunk of this lesson. Let's look into some other types of questions. First of all, choice questions, where you ask this or that. Let's start with a normal statement. Sunu ngaru fken futsngan. You like vegetables or meat. No question, just a normal statement. If I now would ask you to make this into a question, very likely your first instinct would be to use a srak or a srake, like we learned in the beginning, something like this. Sunu ngaru fken futsnan srak. But this achieves not what we want. Because what this is, it makes it into a yes or no question. Do you like vegetables or meat? Answer with yes or no. So tell us generally, do you like at least one of them? Because, like I said, srak and also srake make a yes or no question. Nothing more, nothing less. If we now want to have a choice question here, we would use 2 times fu. Sunu ngaru fufken futsngan. Do you like vegetables or meat? Choose one. Next, let's look at tag questions. So when you ask for confirmation, right? We build these with kefyak. Kefyak comes from ke fefya srak, so not this way, yes or no. And we can actually also use the intermediate form between these two, kefya srak, which means exactly the same. So, one example, ngalu Neytiri kefyak, or longer form, ngalu Neytiri kefya srak. You are Neytiri, right? Fewotso luft elor kefyak. This meal is delicious, right? And that's already it. Very simple and very straightforward. Just put a kefyak or kefya srak at the end. And lastly, we have the conjectural questions, like I explained in the beginning. These are questions where you are not expecting others to know the answer to either. So in English, they are sometimes marked with I wonder. And we use the Artsinfix to build them. So just put the Artsinfix in a normal question, of course into the verb of the normal question, and you get this type of question. I show you the 3 examples that Kayo Paul gave in his post about this. Srake, efo, li, pole hatsem. I wonder if the 3 of them have already arrived. So have they already arrived? I wonder if they have already arrived. Tsa'u, la tsupeu. What on earth is that? So you're asking this when you see something very weird and you're sure the others also have no idea what that is. Pol besenget tatsok. Where in the world could she be? So here again, you're very sure that the others also have no idea where she is. And that was already it. Like always, if you have any questions, you can ask them in the comments or contact me on Discord. I hope that helped you a bit to understand how to form questions in Na'vi. Hi, Yalovai!